welcome back. We're gonna be playing some more Tiny Bunny, and we're gonna start out with meeting up with the bullies. Yay! But I stumbled into my new buddies instead. Romka swaggered up to me.
Решил сдать нас ментам?
Но я ничего не сказал. Да то подумала.
Romka towered over me, breathing out a faint smell of tobacco.
Ты сильно ошибаешься, думая, что без Сёмы у тебя настанут веселые деньки. Можешь не притворяться дурачком, пытаясь удивить Полину своей мазнёй или корчить из себя психа. Мы тебя сосвету сживем, понял? До скорого, очкарик.
My head tilted forward from his...
Вот лохна!
I wasn't surprised to find a note stuck to my back during the break that it said, "Kick me." My nightmare clearly wasn't about to end. It's been 7 days since the lieutenant visited our class. At first glance, everything was still the same. Except there's a lot more snow. Dang. The forest still held out its gnarly claws toward the village, and the wind whipped up white flags weaved from powdery snow every night. When my parents argued in the other room, I would turn up the TV's volume to silence their muffled voices and sit close to Olia. Vova and Semyon's photos were still 2 black spots on the notice board, and round-faced Senya hadn't returned home too. But something did change. I could see how different the looks of my classmates were. They met me with a new portion of pokes and insults. Contempt, mockery, and loneliness became my faithful companions. But most importantly, a shadow slid across my desk, leaving behind a mysterious note. I glanced into the space between rows, but the messenger was already nowhere to be found. Ooh, what's it gonna be? Who sent me this note? What could the carefully ripped out and neatly folded piece of paper be hiding from me? More threats and humiliation, or... I took the piece of paper and carefully inhaled in the wafting aroma. Blackberry. I'll be waiting at the cul-de-sac near the dressing room. Come alone. Inside was a message in beautiful handwriting. Drunk on that sudden call, I immediately started walking, looking over my shoulder from time to time, making sure nobody is following me. I feel like that's gonna be a trap. Even though I suspected it, yep, it could be another trap set up by Romka and Biasha at first. This buzzing thought soon left my mind. The two of them didn't have enough combined brain power to fake Polina's note so carefully. I didn't even notice how I almost broke into a run and jumped around the corner. As soon as I did that, I rammed into somebody inside the dark nook.
Ой!
Like a magic bird, a green notebook glided to my feet. Polina puffed her cheeks in exaggerated anger.
Петров! Да ты совсем зрение потерял.
I fixed my glasses. My nearsightedness wasn't that embarrassing anymore. I bent down and picked up the notebook.
Прости, я так торопился. Ты меня ждала? Что случилось?
Polina studied me with her eyes and clicked her tongue.
А знаешь, на что ты похож, Антоша? На блюзовую импровизацию.
I blinked in bewilderment.
Это как?
Для меня все люди с чем-то ассоциируются.
И для меня, но не с музыкой же.
Вот как раз с музыкой. Бывают люди гитарные соло, или барабанный бой, или военный марш, как наша Лилия Павловна. А ты такой задумчивый, таинственный, иногда немного печальный. Ты точно блюз.
А почему импровизация?
А это когда слушатель не догадывается, куда свернет мелодия, какой темп возьмет.
A Of course, some of the things Polina said went completely over my head, but I couldn't stop looking at her smile, light like a breeze in May, and her eyes deep in blue.
Чтобы распознать в тебе музыку, нужен опыт и вкус. Это не какая-то там эстрада.
Я, наверное, вообще не знаю, что такое этот блюз.
Polina gasped and frowned, which made her look even more beautiful.
Не произноси при мне такие слова. Я тебе обязательно дам кассету. Раньше мне дедушка из города столько музыки привозил. И джаз, и свинг, и классику. Это он подметил, что у меня склад ума, как у музыканта. Я еще совсем маленькой пыталась на бумаге записать звуки природы. Пение дождя, леса.
Эх, мне бы твои уши.
А мне бы твои глаза.
I tensed up, worried that she was making fun of me, but Polina shook her head.
Да-да, я серьезно. У тебя глаза художника. Смотришь на вещи и фиксируешь их. Я так не умею.
Katya walked past us with her trademark frosty glare. Uh-oh. That can't be good. We dove into the shadows, trying to escape it.
Теперь понимаешь, почему мы тут прячемся? Вот из-за таких, как она.
А Катька какая мелодия.
Polina flashed me a sly smile.
Скрип несмазанных дверных петель. Знаешь, такой мерзкий дискант.
I giggled, covering my mouth. Katya didn't hear our whispers, but she suddenly glanced over her shoulder, clearly annoyed. A moment later, she sighed and went her way. I remembered about the notebook I was clutching in my hand and turned it in my hands. Instead of a subject name, the front side had the name of the owner and 2 words, friends only.
Любопытной Варваре кое-что оторвали.
Прости, это анкета?
Заполнял когда-нибудь?
I lied that I had. In reality, girl classmates from my previous school had never asked me to fill their questionnaires. It was quite upsetting. I mean, it was a girl hobby. You just answer a set of standard questions about your favorite actors and colors, but entrusting someone with such a notebook was a sign of friendship. Oh, that's so cute. And maybe of something even more, something I only had a vague idea about.
Хочешь, заполни мою?
My heartbeat quickened.
Хочу, спасибо.
Polina giggled.
А хотя, там же столько секретов. Наверное, лучше тебе не знать, о чем мы, девочки, думаем.
She reached for the notebook, playing with me. I tossed my finding into my free hand. Polina tried to intercept my move. Her hair briefly touched my face, tickling my nose with its silky locks. I sensed an aroma that immediately filled the whole world, fragrant, alluring, lively. If only I could picture it, stealing it for myself. I felt dizzy, but I gathered myself and spoke in a voice reminiscent of Lieutenant Tikhonov.
Ваша анкета является важнейшей уликой, и я вынужден временно изъять ее для изучения.
Polina covered her mouth that rounded in fake horror.
И что мне грозит за сокрытие улик?
Следствие покажет.
Сдаюсь, товарищ милиционер. Только обещайте ничего не читать. Здесь содержатся секретные сведения.
Боюсь, что мне все-таки придется выяснить, не влюблен ли кто в гражданина Петрова.
Polina burst out laughing and pressed herself against my chest, showering me with the aroma of her hair and her milky skin that looked almost transparent, with tiny threads of veins running under it. Her whisper was hot, like a piece of butter sizzling on a pan.
Тогда поклянитесь, что не станете разглашать информацию.
Честная милицейская.
А теперь, Антоша, самое время поторопиться.
Well, that was cute. I took out the notebook during class. Skimmed through it, reading into other people's preferences. I was quite surprised to discover Romka's jerky handwriting inside. Really? Huh. His letters bulged out of the cells as if embarrassed by their shapelessness. Fearsome Romka found time for something so silly. I clucked into my fist after I found out that Romka's favorite cartoon was not even Darkwing Duck, but DuckTales. Somewhere in the distance, a teacher was reciting pieces of Andreev's Snapper. I paid them no mind. Polina's page was decorated with flower drawings and clippings from Cool Girl magazine. Her favorite musician was Schubert. Her best friend is her grandpa. Her hobby is not violin like I expected, but a much more mysterious listening. Could such a mundane process really be somebody's hobby? I looked at Polina over the heads of other students. She was focused on taking notes. I flipped the pages until I found a blank one and armed myself with a pen. Anton Petrov, Class 6B. I took a long time to decide my favorite musician until a trendy pop band, Carman, came to mind with the cool dancers in their music videos. Favorite holiday? This one's easy. New Year's. My hobby is drawing. My dream, going to Disneyland, I guess. My hero? My hand moved on its own, writing Dad. I stopped on those two letters. What if those who read this after me will find my answer laughable and stupid? After thinking for a bit, I decided that not everything should be disclosed on paper. That's how Da turned into Spider-Man. The spelling was wrong, but who cares? Your biggest fear, huh? I immediately wrote, losing a person who's dear to me. Your phone number, no secret, 30395. Right? Yeah. Your favorite cartoon, Transformers. Best friend, I hesitated, gnawing on the pen's cap. Your best friend. I read the question out loud. It was easy, but at the same time very important. The answer to that was my sister's name, so I carefully wrote it into the squares. Olia. I repeated my sister's name while sneaking out of the school. There was a cute, freshly drawn dragon in my notebook that I made to please my beloved sister. In the land of darkness and deceit, her support was the only thing that inspired me to keep drawing and stopped me from losing hope in humanity. Refreshing, frosty air made my cheeks turn beet red. It was bright outside, and the sun looked like a whole egg yolk. The road looked as if it was silvered. The snow sparkled under the sunlight. I smiled, squinting from the blinding whiteness. Who cares if I don't have any true friends anymore? I have something more important, someone who needs my help, who will never betray or hurt me. Family is the most important thing ever. That's what Dad always told me.
Лыс, хорош лыбу тянуть.
My numb lips immediately shrank. Biasha was shuffling his feet in the middle of the yard, his boots restless on the ice.
Я не тяну.
I tried to go around him to no avail. Lady Fortune waved me a goodbye, disappearing in the early twilight.
Торопишься на?
Немного. Меня папа ждет.
Я ему тиркну на пейджер, что ты не придешь на.
My eyes flinched unwittingly, my skin dampened.
Идем на, к тебе дельце есть.
I felt chills run all over my body. I didn't like the sound of that small business. Those words, accompanied by spitting, normally hid every dark deeds underneath them. Hid very dark deeds underneath them. Strangers that used to call our old apartment. Oh boy. I definitely need my glasses. Strangers that used to call our old apartment used to say, "Get your old man, we have a small business to discuss." Biasha turned around. He looked like an astronaut in his tight hood. If I were to imagine him as a sound, it would be he'd be a deafening whistle, a signal given by someone who stands watch. To my demise, there was nobody in the backyard, apart from the grim-faced Romka. He stood there, his feet wide apart and his right hand hidden behind his back. Romka's dry lips were tightly pursed. He kept shooting glances at me as he looked around.
Привёлна.
Вижу. Ну, здорово, Антоша.
Что тебе нужно?
He slowly took out a thin, carnivorous, shiny blade from behind his back. A knife, a steel butterfly of death that flies towards the victim's heart. I stepped back instinctively and rammed my back into Biasha. Romka's minion pushed me back.
А мы с Бяшей хотели узнать, ты не держишь на нас обиду?
Romka started picking up on his yellow nail, looking at me with an evil smile on his face.
Ну, там, в лесу. Мы были немного...
Сам понимаешь, такое у нас воспитание.
Да, до вас, городских, далеко. Вот порой нас и заносит.
I nodded, my eyes glued to the knife. The blade glowed under the setting sun, and Romka's eyes had the same evil glow. He stepped towards me. His knife traveled inches away from my coat. One movement and steel would cut into the cloth, and if he pushes deeper,
Нам одна птичка напела. Ты опять возле Полины отирался?
I was so scared that it took me a while to remember who Polina was. My brain was malfunctioning, my knees were shaking. Suddenly, our class rep slowly walked up to Romka from behind.
О, смотрю, мальчики, вы нашли общий язык.
За мной должок, Катька.
Ой, не благодари, Ромочка. Я всегда на страже настоящей любви. Да-да-да.
I'll kill you, I swear.
Так, я не слышу. Ты к Полине подходил или нет?
Мы так болтали.
Болтать будешь кишками, когда я тебе брюхо вскрою.
The blade slid across my sleeve with its dull side and reached my collar. The wind made my face cold, but a bead of sweat still trickled from my temple. A switch flipped in my head. It all made sense now. I remembered Romka constantly sneaking glances at Polina. I remembered his scrawly handwriting in the questionnaire. Why didn't I study it more in depth?
Еще раз замечу рядом с Полинкой, пеняй на себя. Шишкой не отделаешься. Усек?
Да,
Пшел вон!
I was probably so hypnotized by the knife that Romka had to repeat his threat.
Вон!
I thought about the cold, sharp blade when retreating from the yard. I was asking myself whether I had enough courage to break the promise I made with these bastards. The aftertaste of horrible water I drank down my meds with lingered in my mouth. My thoughts were focused on Polina, but Romka's threat was also on my mind.
В общем,
Да,
я сегодня
ага,
книжку
да.
читала,
I
там
wandered
ребята
around the
учились в
house,
школе, прям как
feeling
ходят в школу, и они в школу ходили.
Да-да.
Вот. И у них
and
был
nodded to
какой-то
everything
праздник,
my
и они там
sister said
поделки
without
несли,
trying to
делали
discern her
всё
words.
своими руками.
Да,
Нужно
да.
было сначала принести
Aaliyah
природные
was talking
материалы,
nonstop,
листики
at
всякие
times
там,
lifting her arms
потом
and
ещё
laughing, only
шишки, и
to
потом
then
они всё это
suddenly go
разбирали
quiet
и
and give
клеили на
mom's
бумагу,
signature
и друг другу
gnarly
дарили.
look.
А,
I was yanked out of the prison of my own mind, where seething thoughts pecked at my brain like harpies, stopping me from coming back to reality. I stared back. Olia looked like a mini version of our mom right now. Well, to be precise, she looked like a person Mom turned into when we moved here, with her intimidating posture and her eyebrows directed toward the ceiling.
Ты меня не слушал, так?
She tried spitting out those words at me, copying facial expressions of the person she spent almost all of her free time with. For a moment, I felt like the light Olia exuded. All of these years waned and wavered in the wind of prolonged changes. Very soon, my beautiful princess will turn into the dragon that was once guarding her prison tower. That thought was much scarier to me than any other horror sneaking up to me from the future.
Оля, прости. Ты же не сердишься, правда? Я просто задумался.
I looked around the room, my gaze jumping from one object to another like a hungry beast, trying to find anything that could distract Olia.
А давай в приставку поиграем.
Olia pouted, but there was a spark of interest in her small emerald eyes. The Snow Queen's ice shard inside them started thawing.
А как же второй джойстик? Не работает же. А папе починить некогда.
Можем из пистолета пострелять. В ковбоев или уток. Хочешь?
Ты лучше меня играешь.
Да ладно тебе. Поди целый день тренировалась, пока меня дома не было.
Olia burst out laughing. Her heart was warm once again.
А как ты догадался? Я сейчас знаешь, какая меткая. Считай, уже проиграл.
Не на того напала. Включай скорее.
Well, that's cute. Little Olia jumped toward the TV set and after flicking the power switch started blindly feeling around the backside of the photon, trying to plug the console's cable into the antenna input. Bits of TV shows started flashing on the CRT screen when I armed myself with the remote to look for the channel with the sought-after Dendy signal.
Что дома интересного происходило?
It was a mundane question for me. I didn't put any actual meaning behind it. But Olia's expression suddenly changed. She lost all of the childish nonchalantness she worked so hard to acquire before.
Оль, что-то случилось?
My sister managed to put the cable in its place and started brushing off her dust-covered hand. She was clearly looking for the courage to continue the conversation.
Мама,
Olia went silent for a moment. I thought I saw tears welling up in her eyes.
у нее опять был этот страшный.
My sister looked at me with wet eyes.
Приступ.
This had happened before, but it was a rare occasion. Now that we moved to this godforsaken place, mom fits rose in frequency.
Папа принес большую рыбу. Она в газету была завернута и пахла так. А мама опять начала злиться. Потом взяла нож.
Olia squirmed, looking fearfully out of the window.
Они начали громко ругаться. И
I froze, imagining my sister so small and unnoticeable, standing in the kitchen doorway. She wasn't even trying to hide. Our parents just paid her no mind at all.
потом мама ударила. Вот так.
Olia slightly moved her fist downward, imitating a strike.
Рыбу.
She hit the fish.
Она была живая тоже. Ей было больно. А мама...
It was easy to imagine what happened next. The writhing fish with the blade between its fins squirmed some foul-smelling musk into Mom's face. Whenever death got this close to Mom, be it when a person was hit by a bus in front of us, or their blood was smeared all over the windshield, or when Grandma chomped off a chicken's head, Mom would always get into a weird, dreadful fit. Her eyes would roll over, she would fall on her face like a freshly cut tree and start writhing just like the agonizing fish, turning over chairs and blurting out bits of scary sentences.
А папа, он ей помог?
Olia shuddered as if remembering it pained her.
Да, но вначале он засмеялся тоже. Так страшно, когда увидел, что маме плохо. А потом вдруг заплакал.
Olia's story made me raise an eyebrow. It seemed like the force oozing madness had not only completely consumed our mom, but also infected our strong and courageous dad. I quickly stepped toward Olia and locked her in a tight embrace. She dug her face into my chest and I could feel my shirt becoming wet.
Зачем они так издеваются друг над другом тоже? Они сумасшедшие!
I stuttered, unable to justify the actions of our parents. I had ran out of words, and all I could do was hug Olia even tighter. Okay. Olia screamed and hid behind me.
Переключи скорей!
No matter how many times she saw this intro, she would always react the same. Just like when she saw that owl. I mean, I also got goosebumps every time this ghastly face appeared on the screen, so I immediately complied with my sister's request. Let's play some video games after that terrible story. Finally, the game selection screen showed up for the cartridge that was bundled with the console. Too bad most of the names here were just different levels of the same game. I picked up the gray rectangular controller and started looking around the pixel letters to find the familiar English word for duck. Background music from the menu soothed Olia's mind, and she asked in a calm voice,
А как твои дела в школе?
Ничего хорошего. Школа новая, а достается мне по-прежнему. Словно и не переезжали никуда. Задолбала.
Before despair could lead me down its depressing road toward the clutches of oppressive thoughts, something evil writhed deep inside my skull, awakening wild and pleasant memories.
Хотя, знаешь, кое-что хорошее все же случилось.
Okay, what's the good thing that happened? Olia watched with hope-filled eyes as a wicked smile spread on my face, faintly resembling the wound from a box cutter knife.
Еще один мальчик пропал.
Oh boy.
Тоша, разве это хорошо?
My sister's voice trembled when she looked into my eyes through the thick lenses.
Знаешь, а может, тот пропавший Вова сам виноват, что с ним это случилось? Может, он совершил нечто настолько плохое, что не заслуживал жить.
Не будь таким жестоким, пожалуйста!
Olia pressed her knees into her chin and hugged them with her hands, trying to take up less space, as if she wanted to shrink or even disappear altogether. It was the only reasonable thing for us to do, go missing among all other broken toys, and never encounter evil parents or mad classmates. We're the only ones left for each other, the only ones who can protect, listen, and sympathize. Which means she's bound to listen to what I think about them all. These beasts pretending to be children that are so eager to bully the weak. It was my turn to speak.
Думаю, они не последние.
Oh boy. This is gonna get dark, isn't it? My breathing quickens. My fingers start banging on the wooden floor.
Такие люди, как они, недостойны жить, ходить с нами в одну школу, смотреть на твой свет.
My thoughts got tangled. They slipped away from my calmness.
Тошенька, хватит! Ты меня пугаешь!
Не бойся, я смогу тебя защитить.
Then I finally noticed that Olia was looking at me like I was a stranger.
Кто ты?
The rage that welled up inside me subsided. It hid under the guise of my cowardliness, leaving me alone with the growing feeling of guilt for scaring my sister.
Оленька, прости, я не хотел. Видимо, я схожу с ума в этой школе.
She rushed to embrace me, barely holding back her tears.
Все хорошо, Тоша. Только, пожалуйста, пожалуйста, никогда так больше не говори.
Клянусь маминым сердцем.
Olia flashed me a bitter smile.
А сам сказал, что так говорить нехорошо.
Ты права, давай лучше играть.
Только чур я первая.
Duck Hunter. Ooh. Or turn off. Oh. I got one. Hey. Dang it.
Метко, ничего не скажешь.
Got a tie. Woo! Nope, missed. This is fun. Nope. Was expecting it to go straight. I'm not doing good on this one.
Хорош, почти как я.
Final round. What happens if you turn it off? Oh, shoot. Didn't mean to do that. Miss. I missed all those.
А у нас тоже ничья.
I wonder if it's just supposed to stay a draw. But that's cool. My mom only managed to get through to me on her third attempt. Uh-oh. I sobered up in an instant and rushed to the hallway.
Не споткнись, смотри.
I grabbed the phone, pressed it to my chest, looking at my mom. She shrugged and went into the room, gathering the toys thrown around by Olia as she went.
Алло?
У твоей мамы такой молодой голос.
А, ну да. Она сама молодая.
Не мешаю?
Нет, что ты.
If only she knew how costly this conversation could be for me, what risk I took on just answering this call. There was a pen and a shabby notepad lying on the nightstand. I picked them up and started moving the tip of the pen across the paper, producing chaotic doodles that always ended up turning into hearts.
Я тут подумала, мне надо тебе сказать кое-что.
I froze. It can't be. Does she like me?
В последнее время у тебя такой потерянный вид, а сегодня в школе на тебе буквально лица не было.
I couldn't find my words. My heart was aflutter in anticipation.
Я хочу сказать, я на твоей стороне.
A smile was spreading on my face in anticipation for Polina's next words.
И мне тебя очень жаль. Такие хорошие ребята, как ты, заслуживают большего. Мне очень хочется верить, что однажды ты найдешь в себе силы дать отпор, и другие перестанут тебя задирать.
The pen fell out of my weak fingers. Is that all she's going to say?
Может, даже девушку найдешь.
Oh boy. That's not what you want to hear. She sounded as if she was unsure of her own words.
Короче, знай, ты славный парень.
It was a total failure. Comparison instead to an invitation to hang out.
Ты тут?
Before I could reply, Olia descended the stairs. She was holding some book with a pink cover, Encyclopedia of a Young Lady.
Ты долго еще?
I covered the headset with my hand.
Я разговариваю. Что случилось?
Почитай мне, пожалуйста. Мама уснула.
Иди к себе, я сейчас.
Только быстрее, ладно?
Ладно.
My last reply sounded excessively annoyed. I sighed, watching my sister run up the stairs.
Алло, Полина?
Прости, мне надо бежать. Представляешь, кое-кто втюрился в меня и теперь оттирается у моих окон, требуя сходить с ним на свидание. Пойду прогоню его, пока дедушка не проснулся. Или, может, дать ему
boy.
шанс?
I bit my lower lip in jealousy.
Если интересно, расскажу тебе завтра. Мы в конце концов друзья.
Friends. At least she didn't say we were besties.
Да, конечно. Добрый.
The buzzer hammered at my brain. Oh boy. That's excessive. She wanted to be friends with you, not anything else. Don't need to be mean. An angry voice spoke through the teeth in my brain. Like a restless zombie devoid of consciousness, I dragged my feet up the staircase. I wish I could tell Dad, ask him for manly advice. But he doesn't show up home until late at night because of his new job. My parents didn't have time for me, to put it lightly.
Ну, где твоя книжка?
I stuttered. The kids' room was empty. She probably snuck into my room. I started walking down the corridor. The room was infested with shadows. Excuse me. The blinds were wavering like there was someone hiding behind them. I smiled, sneaking toward the window, and threw open the curtain.
Попалась!
Gotcha. There was nobody behind the cloth. The window was a TV screen showing winter scenery. The lamppost, the field, and a couple of walking figures in the middle of it. Elisa and Olia. I gasped and pressed my fist to my mouth, sinking my teeth into it. Elisa was leading Olia into the thicket. I needed less than a minute to hurriedly dress and rush out of the house. My heart was beating like a firing machine gun. The wind carried the cold, resinous smell of coniferous trees from the forest. Freezing air crackled somewhere in the field. Two shadows loomed in front of the gate. I could only recognize them as my sister and the fox girl because of their height. I ran toward the fence, listening to the howling wind and the squeaking snow. One of the figures moved and slowly glided toward the thicket like an ice skater. I slowed down and touched my glasses, trying in vain to adjust my vision to the surrounding darkness. Worry landed on my shoulders like a weightless snowflake. A snake woke up in my belly and started writhing. I felt nauseous. I thought about my home, the flimsy fortress I'd left behind. I finally caught up to my sister, dressed only in a cloak.
Оля!
Ты видел лисичку?
Оля, зачем ты вышла на улицу? Если мама узнает...
My sister froze in place, facing the Taika. When she was in hand's reach, I put my numb wrist on her shoulder for some reason, probably to make sure it wasn't gone. Oh boy. A pointy beak was directed at me, strewn with feathers that formed an owl face. Something wearing a bird mask was staring at me.
Ого, не узнает.
The voice sounded exactly like Olia's, but there was somebody else hiding behind the feathers and the carton. I sprinted away as if I got whipped. The masked creature only pretended to be Olia, just to lure me out. I was running like crazy, drowning in snow. The house in front of me was rapidly growing. The yellow light in its windows granted me hope. Mom and sister are there, my salvation. I couldn't hear anything from behind me, as if nobody was chasing me. Maybe it's because the owls can fly? I was already climbing up the porch when I noticed another figure. From the soot-black shadows of my house, a scruffy wolf cub crawled out and stood in my way. Its movements were jerky, chaotic, as if it was performing some terrifying dance, or convulsing during a stroke. And even though I could clearly see that the wolf face was a mask, something in the werewolf's convulsions made me freeze in place. The boy in the wolf's costume rubbed his side against the porch post and fell to his knees. He bent his back so hard I expected his spine to crack. The beast's eyes shone, but he didn't attack. He kept crawling around and running on all fours. I shifted my feet, my mouth agape, trying to keep him in my line of sight. Something was trickling from the slit in the mask. Viscous drops fell to the wooden planks. Saliva. some unknown force pushed me in the back, whispering me to save myself. The fence was flashing by at the edge of my vision. I was running in another direction this time, toward the toothy edge of the forest that smelled of pine. My heartbeat measured time. The wolf boy growled behind my back as if he forgot his human nature. My right leg got stuck in the snow-laden cavity. I yanked it out, cursing under my breath, and fell to the ground. Plastering snow prevented me from standing up, from propping myself against anything. But my unbound thirst for life helped me get out of that trap. Darkness was creeping closer like toxic fumes of buried fires. I ran again, gasping for air that stung my throat. My hair swayed in the wind. I lost my hat when I fell down, and my ears were now hot from the freezing cold while most of my body was still sweaty. The field finally ended. After realizing that running into the forest wasn't the smartest decision, you think? I couldn't make. I drove into the line of trees. I ran without stopping, my face covered with lonely. I didn't want to lose an eye to some random branch. Branches whipping my clothes, my skin like whippers that were hurting a pig into the grinder. A knot of roots sprouting from the ground grabbed my foot. I rammed into the scratchy trunk, slid down to its base, and looked around in panic.
Ух, какой ты быстрый!
My first desire was to dash toward her and hug her. I resisted it and squeezed myself even tighter into the pine.
Что ты здесь делаешь?
Да вот,
She was holding the hat I lost.
в бюро находок подрабатываю. Надевай, а то уши замерзнут, а потом, глядишь, и вовсе отвалятся.
She giggled. I squinted in suspicion and shifted my gaze back and forth between her and the hat, scared that Elisa might be holding a severed head or something even more sinister. But in the end, my hat turned out to be just my hat. Yeah, take it. I put it and pulled it over my forehead.
Тепло?
I didn't reply.
Там во дворе были какие-то дети.
И что, покусали тебя, что ли?
Нет.
А чего же ты убежал?
The answer was obvious, but after rolling the thought on my tongue, I mumbled.
Не знаю.
Эх, обещала не обзывать тебя дурачком. А я обещание исполняю.
She walked up to me and grabbed me by the elbow. I sensed the familiar aroma of mint, oranges, and burnt sparklers. I wanted to lean into Alice to savor the minute details of her smell.
Сколько можно повторять? Со мной ты в безопасности. Я твой друг. И они.
And they are too. Interesting. I quickly turned around toward the place the fox girl was pointing to. Kids in masks appeared in the clearing. At least they looked like kids since they were all pretty short. A wolf boy and an owl girl and a bear boy. Oh. Weird. They all huffed and gasped for air, clearly tired from running around.
Я думала, ты в снег провалился. Стала снег копать, нет тебя.
А я не копал, лень копать было. А ну как получается? Если дурак, то бегай да копай. А если умный, подожди, пока другие набегаются, накопаются и устанут. И уж тогда заводи разговор.
Как я рад! Дегенерат!
А?
Не обращай внимания, он со странностями.
I stood there stupefied, my mouth agape and my hands dangling helplessly. I had no idea how to react to the words of those late-night guests, but I managed to squeeze out something resembling a smile.
Вы просто меня напугали.
They started looking at each other, and somebody even snorted as if I said something funny.
Да, да, лиса права.
Это он.
Нет, это наш!
Неужели нашли?
Наш зайчик.
Да-да, похож.
The wolf boy started wagging a part of his costume like it was his tail in excitement.
Ну, конечно, ты первый. Это Волчик раньше всех почуял зайчика в тебе и рассказал нам.
Здравствуй.
С нашей совушкой ты знаком не понаслышке. Не такая уж она и страшная, правда?
This is getting weird.
Да, наверное.
А этот улыбчивый бугай — медвежутка. Ты лучше с ним поласковее, а то голову откусит.
Зачем это?
Да, смотрю, ты чувство юмора где-то обронил.
I was still unsure if these peculiar I was still unsure if these peculiar I can't say that word. I can't say it properly. Little animals had the best intention in mind, so I hid my hands behind my back, trying to look away from the gaping holes of their carnival masks. Lisa put her hands on her sides with a theatrical manner and somehow managed to wink in with her fox mask.
Когда в следующий раз придем, будем звенеть в колокольчики, чтобы ты не так боялся нашего визита.
А у нас разве есть колокольчики?
Чур, я звенеть не буду. У меня лапка болит.
My smile was no longer fake.
О, зубы показал. Это добрый знак. Не ожидала, что сможем тебя рассмешить. Я думала, это под силу только Диснейленду.
Откуда ты знаешь?
Да так, прочитала кое-где.
Про меня?
Про клюв от воробья. Про Диснейленд яхонтовый.
Ты умеешь читать по-человечески?
Зря я, что ли, в школу хожу день ото дня.
Then she sang in a coquettish voice.
Как детей не замечать, как мечты их развенчать. Учат в школе, учат в школе, учат в школе.
Interesting.
Крепко-накрепко вломить, с детства слабеньких чморить. Учат в школе, учат в школе, учат в школе.
I let out a cautious laugh. My new acquaintances didn't seem scary anymore. On the contrary, they looked friendly and welcoming. There was something about them that attracted me. Just like this clearing, this moon, and the snowflakes that fell backwards from the ground to the sky, as if someone was rewinding a tape. The masked kids got close and I felt their touch. They gave me friendly taps, felt my clothes as if checking whether I was real. There was no animalistic malice in their touch, only pure childish curiosity. For some reason I thought to myself, I can trust them. Snowflakes just kept on floating upwards.
Никто тебя больше не обидит.
Друг, пусть только попробуют.
The fox gave me a slight tug and burst out laughing.
Ну что, Тоша, убежишь с воплями или с нами пойдешь?
Куда?
На аттракционы!
At that moment, Taiga's deceptive silence was broken by the sound of a distant flute. Mesmerizing and alluring, it brought about the ring of crystal glass and whispers of fresh winter spring. If I had any doubts before, the flute song shattered the last of them. I started following my new friends before I could even make my decision. My legs carried me on their own will, and the tunnels made of pines stepped apart. Bushes bowed in front of our procession. Everything looked dreamlike. Because even the clearing we ended up on, I only saw in my dream. The flute soared up into the treetops like some fantastical bird. The snowflakes floated up in a spiral. The moon painted tree branches with silver. Elisa gasped in amazement. I was also in awe. I tilted my head backwards as far as I could.
Красиво как.
Очень красиво.
Wolfie howled everywhere.
Мелочи. Я покажу гораздо больше, если захочешь.
I did want. I wanted to see what the fox girl saw with her eyes hidden in the semi-dark of her cape. I didn't feel weird about these masked kids. I felt weird for being the only one without a mask. I felt like I was naked in the January winds.
Скажите, а зачем вам маски?
I was trembling, but I wasn't scared. My trembling wasn't caused by the cold. It originated from the peculiar anxiousness, the anticipation of something amazing.
А тебе зачем?
I touched my cold cheek.
Но я без маски.
Обожаю человеческие сказки.
Человеческие ласки.
Человеческие дрязги.
Я же говорила, все жители поселка носят маски. Только скрываются за ними отнюдь не люди.
И даже я?
Ты такой рассеянный, Антон.
Однажды мы уже нашли твои очки.
И шапку.
И твое настоящее лицо.
Oh, they found the mask. I looked at the mask the fox was holding out to me. The bunny mask that looked like a silver ingot under the moonlight. I was curious to see the world through its slits. Well, let's take it. Suddenly, fighting its way through the flute's melody, a thought came to me. The glasses they found were in Semyon's possession. My new acquaintances must have known what happened to him, or even worse.
А куда подевался Семён? Что с ним стало? И с остальными детьми?
The bear and owl looked at each other. The wolf boy curled into a ball and the fox lowered the pointy nose of her mask.
Тот, кого держали в клетке.
Тот, кто режет мелко-мелко.
Тот, кто носит кожаное лицо, забрал их.
Умел бы я креститься, перекрестился бы.
Хотите сказать, это был человек?
Чем ты только слушал? Разве можно назвать такого, как он?
Одно слово. Взрослый.
В мире взрослых так легко потеряться.
Убийцы, жестокие дрессировщики и равнодушные родители. Лучше об этом вовсе не думать, чтобы не грустить. Не знаю, как вам, а мне печалиться совсем не хочется.
И я сегодня какой-то негрустный. Антон, а ты?
А?
I was lost in thought, staring at the pines, trying to pinpoint the location of the flute. I was sure that the person who played it was standing right behind the piney stockade. Someone tall, going over the holes of the flute with their long fingers.
Так что, сядем тосковать или займемся отдыхом?
Алиса хотела что-то показать.
Давай начнем с самой сладкой части программы.
The fox girl took out a handful of candy from her pocket and handed them to each of the kids. Covers shuffled. The smell of pineapple, cocoa, and melon wafted through the air.
Ау!
The last treat, a chocolate-covered waffle candy, Elisa put right into my mouth. My tongue was engulfed in spiciness. I felt like my body was covered in fur and small sparks were running along it. I chewed on the waffle and the chocolate, gulped them down, enjoying the vivid taste.
Спасибо.
My gratitude was barely audible because my lips were already touching the insides of a mask. I didn't even notice how I put it against my face. The paper mache was warm, the mask stuck to my skin, giving it a nice prickle. The kind when you dive into a hot bath after being outside in winter, when you lie there and purr from the soapy water.
Говорила же! Это твое!
Мое.
Чего стоим? За нас веселиться никто не будет.
И то верно.
The melody kept swirling in the field like a hurricane. I couldn't wait to release the energy, the heat that was this enchanting music was filling me with. The owl jumped and disappeared into the sky. I heard laughter from somewhere above, and then she landed back, huffing and sighing.
И ты так можешь! Попробуй!
I followed suit. My feet tore off the ground. I flew towards the stars like a rocket and screamed from happiness after seeing my friends down below. The wind helped me fly like I was jumping on a huge trampoline. The stars looked like vivid sparkles that I could reach and let go. The moon got closer, then I plunged. I got scared that I'd break my legs for a moment, but my soles landed softly on the ground and I regained my balance.
С нами ты в безопасности! И все твои мечты станут явью! Я так счастлива наконец обрести тебя! Зайчик!
In a fit of merry laughter, I realized the most important thing. These four are not us, my real enemies, and I felt that with every single hair on my mask, there were those who knew nothing about magic. Humans from the village. I also realized how alive my surroundings have become. Ugh. I heard the dry grass under the snow moan. I saw faces of the trees and the stars. The trees were smirking and the stars were grimacing in fear. That's right, be scared. I'll jump up to you and I snapped my teeth and then let out a jubilant laugh, jumping up along with the fox. We flew higher than the tallest pines and stayed in the air. I swirled Elisa followed my I knew she was smiling, so I smiled too. And the flute just kept on playing, carrying us higher and higher.
Эй! Тебя что, заколдовали?
Uh-oh. What is this? It's someone standing next to me, I thought, trying to unglue my chin from my desk. My muscles felt slightly sore, but that feeling was pleasant. The whole class was wandering about for some reason, whispering and passing notes to each other. Their faces looked like discolored masks to me, bleak and boring. I yawned, remembering the time I was soaring high above the forest with Elisa by my side, laughing and squeezing my hand. Perhaps, no, probably, it was all just a dream. Because I didn't walk back to the forest, just woke up in my bed in a normal morning with tea and medicine. Still, I was hardly worried about trying to find a rational explanation for my night dance. The feeling of flight was much more important. The knowledge of how it feels to be hanging in the air above the treetops of majestic pines and baring my teeth at the moon.
Прости, задумался.
Слышал уже про Катю?
А?
Oh, is she missing now too? I glanced at the empty seat in front of me.
Катя пропала.
My sleepiness was gone in an instant. I frowned in suspicion.
Как пропал? Быть не может.
Uh-oh.
Катя!
Ooh, hey! Thank you for completing episode 3. We are deeply grateful for everyone who purchased the game in early access. Sweet. Okay, so that was end of episode 3 and the end of the game for right now. I can't wait until the next chapter comes out. I'm so confused on what's going on with everything. It seems like he's just having dreams, but maybe it's all real? I don't know. And then everybody keeps going missing. When are we gonna find out about that? Well, I guess we'll find out in the next episode. Thank you for watching.